Hello everyone, welcome to the EDA. As many of you know, my name is Gareth Walsh. I'm a UCLA DMA alumni from many years ago, and also the EDA supervisor for this space. So I was asked with great honor to introduce Yoshua Okón on behalf of Professor Rebecca Mendez, who unfortunately is ill at home and could not be here with us tonight, but I know she really wanted to be here. Yoshua Okón was born in Mexico City in 1970, where he currently lives. His work, like a series of non-sociological experiments executed for the camera, blends stage situations, documentation, and improvisations and questions habitual perceptions of reality and truth, selfhood, and morality. His videos blur the lines between documentary, reality, and fiction. He collaborates closely with his actors, often amateurs who are also the subjects of his work, to create sociological experiments that ask viewers to contemplate unfortunate situations and circumstances. His works with marginalized groups such as pit bull owners, Nazi war memorabilia collectors, and Venice Beach homeless people in order to reflect back onto the mainstream culture. In 2002, he received an MFA from UCLA with a Fulbright scholarship. His solo show exhibitions include Yoshua Okón in the Land of Ownership, Asakusa, Tokio, Salò Island, UC Irvine, Piovra, Kaufmann Repetto, Milan, Poulpe, Mor Charpentier, Paris, Octopus, Cornerhouse, Manchester, I know that one well, and the Hammer Museum, Los Angeles, SUBTITLE at the Städtische Kunsthalle, Munich. His group exhibitions include Manifesto 11, Zurich, Gwangju Biennale, Korea, Antes de la Resaca, MUAC, Mexico City, Incongruous, Musèe Cantonal de Beux-Arts, Louisiana, the Mole's Horizon, Palais de Beaux-Arts, Brussels, Mercosur Biennale, Porto Alegre, Adaptive Behavior, New Museum, New York, and Mexico City, an exhibition about the exchange rates between bodies and values, PS1, MoMA, New York, and Kunstwerk, Berlin. So many exhibition venues. His work is included in collections at the Tate Modern, Hammer Museum, LACMA, MUAC, amongst others. So without further ado, here is Yoshua Okón.
Thank you for the introduction. It's great being here after so many years. I will be showing works, I guess some really early works from the 90s, and then make my way till very recent works. I'll be taking questions as I go along, so please feel free to raise your hand and ask a question at any given moment. I will begin by showing a piece I did in 1999. This work, for this work, I invited policemen from Mexico City to come to my studio and perform for my camera. I would, go to my studio in the morning, grab the camera, and literally walk out to the streets to look for policemen, and then ask them talk them into coming into my studio. Each day I would just try to come up with a different idea on the way, looking for the policemen. In the end, I ended up choosing 6 out of all the videos that I made. That conform now the installation. These are some installation views. I consider my practice to be a hybrid among performance, video, and installation. I consider video, or I use video as a physical medium that occupies space, and therefore the relationship of video of the screen or the projection to the body is very important, and to the architecture as well. So this is an example of an installation. I can show you. This is a floor plan, so that you get an idea. So basically, each video has its own space where you can watch it on its own, the projection, but also get a strong sense of them as a group. So there's another view. So I will go ahead and then show one video from this series. Can we turn on the lights, please? Turn off the lights, please. Cool.
Por culpa de ustedes está corrompido todo esto. Cabrón, debería ser un hombre formal como yo, como bastantes. Mira, me estás perjudicando en mi trabajo, ¿no? A mí tus abogados y tus papás me los paso por ahí. Pues sabes que ya sácate la goma. En serio, llégale a la verga.
Oye, pero ¿por qué? Yo no estoy haciendo nada.
Llégale a la verga, no sabes lo que es.
Tranquilícese.
Mira,
Usted está aquí para cuidarnos y se debería de tranquilizar, ¿no?
Mira, voy a pedir más unidades. Y si no, yo mismo te voy a romper la madre. Ya sácate de aquí, pinche marisco. Otto. Ese güero, ya sabes a chingar a su madre, cabrón. Me cae de madre que hasta que no les parte uno la madre entienden. Pinches vagos arrogantes, poca madre, hijos de la sociedad. La sociedad ya está harta de ustedes, cabrón.
Al revés, está harta de ustedes que nos deberían de estar cuidando.
Gente
Nada
como
más nos están
ustedes,
viendo.
por eso nos está llevando
¿Qué
la
pasa?
chingada, farmacodependientes, drogadictos. Ya sácate a chingar a tu madre,
¿Qué, oficial?
porque lo que va a pasar es que te voy a romper la madre.
Yo puedo
Es que
firmar
no
donde yo
entiendes,
quiera.
tú no puedes firmarme a mí,
¿Por qué
soy
no?
un
Yo
servidor
puedo firmar
público,
donde quiera.
cabrón. Vete a firmar a tu
Pero yo
pinche
no cometí
madre, a
ningún
tus
delito.
hermanas.
Yo no cometí ningún delito.
¿Cómo
oficial.
no? En la forma que me estás hostigando,
Tranquilícese usted.
estás perjudicándome. Es más,
qué?
llégale, porque me vas a hacer...
Tranquilícese, ¿no?
No, pues ¿por qué te voy acá?
Tranquilícese, por favor.
Es más... Mira, pero ya sácate a chingar a tu madre, pareces joto, pinche
¿Qué
marisco.
pasa? Oiga, más respeto.
No, llégale de aquí, me cae.
Más respeto,
Lo que
oficial.
pasa es que te voy a romper la madre y todo va a
Pero
pasar.
¿por qué? Yo no he cometido ningún delito.
Bueno, ¿qué es
Yo
lo
puedo
que
firmar
quieres?
si
¿Qué es
yo
lo que
quiero.
quieres? ¿Qué es lo que
Yo
quieres?
puedo firmar si yo quiero.
No, no, tú no vas a
Me da
firmar
la
a
gana.
nadie.
¿Por qué no?
Vete a firmar al
Le
zoológico.
voy a poner una demanda.
Pues a mí las demandas me las paso por el arco de Belén, cabrón.
Pero
Mejor ya sácate a chingar a tu
Bueno,
madre
está
porque
por
me va...
arriba de la ley.
No, estás equivocado.
tranquilícese.
De mi deber y tú, cabrón.
Pero yo no estoy haciendo nada.
¿Cómo no?
Que yo puedo
¿Qué me
firmar si
tienes
yo
que estar
quiero.
firmando si yo no soy artista? Yo no soy artista.
Pero yo-
Te vuelvo a repetir, vas a hacer que me encabrone y me regrese, te voy a dar en la madre y aparte...
Pero
te
¿por
voy a
qué me
arrestar,
ofende usted?
voy a arrestar.
¿Por qué me ofende?
Gente como tú vale para pura madre, cabrón.
¿Pero por qué me
Por eso está
ofende?
la sociedad así.
Oiga, yo no lo ofendí.
¿Por qué me quieres faltar al respeto tomándome?
Que yo no
Retírate,
estoy faltando al
retírate.
respeto, le estoy haciendo un
Mira, ya me estás...
Tranquilícese, oficial.
Cansado,
¿Por qué me
oficial.
golpea? Le voy a poner una demanda en la
A mí
Contraloría
ponme la que
mañana.
quieras, a mí derechos humanos y tú me los paso.
Mañana le voy a poner una demanda, mañana mismo.
Pues antes de que me pongan la demanda te voy a dar y toda...
Okay. So that's one of the videos in the series. You just watched an excerpt, but each video loops. Any questions so far? Yes.
Did you say, was that real, or was that you asked him to act for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of the things that really interested me in this series was the precisely. Oh, sorry. I think we need the microphone for the questions. Right?
Sure.
Is that
Oh,
recording?
I was asking if that was staged, like, because you said that you met police officers on the street and then invited them into your studio. Was this somebody who accepted and this was what you got, or was this the invitation?
Yeah, I mean, I was very interested in trying to, create a tension between fiction and documentary, and kind of, occupy this kind of gray area in between the two. So, I mean, it's artificial or fictional to the degree that I asked him to come and we are faking the fight. But there was no script, and I met him that day and I invited him over. So we didn't script it, and it was done in a very spontaneous way. So you could argue that it's both. I mean, it's reality and it's not reality. And yeah, to me, it's very, very important for viewers, and you will see with my following work, to ask themselves these questions. In other words, to become very much aware of their act of watching and interpreting and trying to figure out, what is real. Because when you try to figure out what is real, you're therefore formulating your own ideas or notions of what reality constitutes. So it's both. Okay. Oh, there was another question back there. Okay, sure. Yes, I pay them. Oh, sorry. You have to ask a question again because you need the microphone, right? I can answer? Good. Thank you. Okay. Yes, I did. When I approached them, part of what my way of convincing them was to, of course, tell them that I would pay for their time. So yes, I did pay them. Okay, so I'll go ahead and show another one in this series. Okay. Any question about this one? This time, well, last one I approached him, the policeman, and I asked him if he wanted to engage in a fight with me. That's all I said. So he asked me if he could get to insult me, and I said yes, and then he was like, then I'll do it. And in this case, I saw the policeman playing with his baton on the street, and then I just asked him to come to my studio to do a demonstration of his weapon. So he took it from there. Yes. Yeah. It was weapons, yeah. So yes. Okay. So these are very, very old works. So I will jump many years in time and show a much more recent work. This piece, Octopus, is a piece I shot here in Los Angeles, and originally I was invited by the Hammer Museum to do a research residency. So I had lived in Los Angeles because I was a student here, and it was a good opportunity for me to think back about LA and spend some time here and do a work that I mean, I wanted to do a work that was somehow interactive with this city. So I had many ideas, and but just right before coming, I read a book by a friend of mine called The Art of Political Murder by a writer named Frank Goldman. And Frank's mother is Guatemalan, and during the 1980s and early 90s, he was a war correspondent in Guatemala. And then he wrote this book about the assassination of Bishop Geraldi, which is was a very important human rights activist in Guatemala, and he was, documented the genocide that took place there. So this book gave me a very good idea of the U.S. invasion in Guatemala and the ensuing, involvement of the U.S. in the civil war, the Guatemalan civil war that lasted almost 40 years. So the reason why this book was relevant in the context of Los Angeles is because I remembered when I lived here, I remembered going to a Home Depot parking lot in order to hire undocumented workers. And one of the workers that I hired was Guatemalan, or still is Guatemalan, and he told me that he fought in the Civil War. In other words, he was an ex-guerrilla from the Guatemalan Civil War. So then I went back to this parking lot and I looked for this guy, couldn't find him, but sure enough, I mean, in that parking lot is where a lot of the Mayan Guatemalan community gathers. And I found somebody else that had fought in the war. And so he helped me put together a whole group of ex-guerrillas and ex-military. And I asked them to perform a Civil War reenactment at the Home Depot parking lot. The name of the piece is Octopus because Octopus was the nickname of the United Fruit Company, which is like a US corporation that was very much involved in the US invasion to Guatemala, and it kind of stresses that connection between government and corporation that it's part of the system that we live in. So anyway, the piece is a 4-channel installation. You can see here some installation views. So it's a very immersive environment. You have 4 projections, synchronized projections around you, and Home Depot buckets in the center where you can sit. So I will play the 4 channels in one, so you will have to use your imagination. So here it goes. With lights, please. Thank you.
Chawilta. Oh. Ha? Achuma. Oh. Natsu. Namalak. Kas. Kubia, bia. ما تسيش أطرقس كتروه خانن كمية شتاق كبه غير كوبيه يا وشخص وخان قتيك ونشي كي قتيو وشيش أكمل tak railu ya orang kena erat cerkai chipur ke kecewar tu pici cerkai chapa tembus cerkai chipur kan na kuantik iskor bacu ya sakni malahun kan kikan malahun kan kikan kumatsir antat kumatsir no adum
Okay. So you just watched about 2/3 of the entire length. The piece is 18.5 minutes loop. Yes.
Was it noticeable that you were filming to the Home Depot employees and to the, people that were coming to the store, or was it more, or were you like more assuming to be like elusive also, or?
Yeah.
I mean, clearly you're pretty statically shooting them often, but I just was wondering, because in that last shot, and I didn't really see it very much, like people looking like at you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very, very good question. I did shoot guerrilla style. In other words, I did not get any permission from the official permission from the Home Depot, or unofficial. But again, it was impossible to not be noticed. When you have, 15 guys crawling on the floor, and some of the shots, for instance, the ones that are done using the carts. The camera was in another cart that we were also pulling. So, some shots were more discreet than others. The last shot that you saw, that I showed, the last scene that I showed where they're lying on the floor, the camera in that one was hidden in the car because as soon as I got there, maybe 15 minutes later, I got kicked out by the guards. And then I talked them into letting me stay. So they said, when our supervisor comes, you have to go. So then about 3 hours later, when the supervisor came, I also managed to talk him into letting me stay. And he said that when his supervisor came, I really had to go. So the supervisor came 6 hours later from the moment I started shooting, and I already had like 90% of the footage done. So then I went back the next day to shoot a lot of the pickup shots of the signs and that scene in front of the shed. So for that, unfortunately, the same guards were there, and then I begged them to let me do this last scene, and I told them I would like hide everything inside of a car so you would not be aware of the cameras. So basically, all people could see in that particular shot in the parking lot were two guys laying on the floor, and people still kept going. All in all, we were pretty much ignored by all the client, Home Depot's clients. Yes.
And also, where did you show this in LA?
I showed this at the Hammer Museum. More, in 2011, so it's already almost 6 years. Thank you. Now I forgot your first question. The first question was, the script. Yes, a lot of my work involves a degree of design and a degree of lack of control. I put myself in situations that I'm not completely controlling. So in this particular case, I knew I had no control of a very chaotic location. Number one, not having a permit. Number two, with cars coming in and out and people coming in and out. So I did not know what to expect. It was an experiment in many levels. So I did make sure to the aspects that I could control, I made sure to really have them under control. So I never fought in a war, but I did some sessions with these guys where they showed me the moves and talked to me about the rhythms and made suggestions of what kind of movements we could use. So then based on that, I abstracted them, I created a choreography. And also, same thing with the camera, you know, the DPs. That I gave them very, very precise instructions on where the cameras would be, and the, you know, we used 2 cameras. So yes, that was very tight, because otherwise things could have gotten way too chaotic, and it's the kind of balance that's, I mean, in a way, my work is about that kind of balance. And actually, fortunately, the Hammer Museum was making a behind-the-scenes documentary. So while I was there, I started directing them as well, and I ended up using stealing some of their of their takes. Yes. And for instance, like the one that where you see the guy crawling, and it's three different angles. So that was one of their cameras. So. Yes.
So we've just seen a little bit of your work, and I'm curious the common thread that is through these pieces. It's men fighting, men in uniform, men in these kinds of. And I'm wondering if there is something about these kinds of very masculine roles and the aggression, but kind of reenacting them in like a silly way, like if that's a theme that you go for, or if that's just something that you're naturally drawn to, or if there's some like undercurrent of an intention behind picking these themes and reenacting them in the way that you are.
Mm-hmm. It's a little coincidental that the only pieces I've shown tonight deal with that, but nevertheless, I mean, I guess, ultimately, I am interested. In this piece, for instance, to me, the real subject are not these guys. The real subjects are the Home Depot's clients. I mean, people. What's going on around them is what really interests me the most. And I know this is not answering your question at all, but so I guess, I mean, masculinity in war, or a critique of masculinity in war, I mean, it's definitely an interest I have, but I would not say it's like central. I mean, I kind of try, I mean, for instance, in the policeman piece, I mean, I anticipated that a lot of the tensions that are happening already in Mexico City that have to do with class, that have to do with race, with the exercise of power, etc., or abuse of power, not only on the side of the police, but also on the side of privileged, people, etc. I knew by just asking a police to fight with me, I knew a lot of these tensions would come out anyway. So, but I guess I guess I'm using the masculinity of the body as an excuse to can then go and talk about all these other issues. Yes.
I have 2 questions. One is, what do you think of variation in your work? Like a variation?
Variation.
Like in terms of, let's say, like the 4 channels. Versus like single channel. Like what do you think it does? Okay. Well, I mean, one of the aspects that really interests me is to be able to implicate you as a viewer. In other words, I think in consumer culture, we have the tendency to always kind of look in a very passive way and from a very passive point of view. And I think that's how we learned watching TV, watching video through TV, etc. So I am interested in placing you in the center of what you're watching, and that's why I was saying, for instance, in Octopus, to me, what goes on around the performers. In other words, the kind of everyday consumer is central. In other words, this piece is about us. It's not about them. Through them, we kind of look back at ourselves. So I think when I started working with video, in the 90s, TV was very strong, and the influences of TV was very strong. And I always thought, this medium has a huge potential, but I really need to
take some distance from the conventions around the medium in order to use it in a different way. So that's why, I mean, to me it's very important, like I said at the beginning, the relationship of your body to the screen. And so by creating multi-channel videos, I found ways of, from a phenomenological point of view, place you inside of the picture and not outside. You're kind of occupying the same space, and I guess that's why I became interested in the possibilities of multi-channel.
How do you think of humor in your work, element of humor?
That's a good question. I think humor can be a very, very powerful tool. We, for some reason, culturally, we tend to associate humor with superficiality and solemnity with seriousness, and I don't think that is the case at all. I mean, humor can be a way of addressing serious issues, and especially a great way of addressing the kinds of issues we tend to evade and we tend to not want to address. So I am very much interested in humor and in dark humor, and a lot of artists that historically have used humor are some of my favorite artists use humor in a very central way. People like, I don't know if you know about Abby Hoffman, for instance. It's one of my big heroes. Or you have a great example here in the Hammer Museum, Jimmy Durham's use of humor. So I'm very much interested in humor. And I think also it goes back to the question of implication. I think when you laugh at something, you're already implicated. And we tend to laugh in a very reflexive way. We first laugh and then think about what we're laughing at. So I'm kind of interested in that that aspect of humor as well. Yes.
Hi. I was wondering, what was their response to performing this for you?
You mean like a response the day we shot or afterwards by showing it?
For them, like how did they react to the experience?
For them?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I can tell you to a degree. I mean, you would really need to ask them, not me. But I mean, I know that they were very enthusiastic about the project and that they participated. They were happy to participate. And as you could see, they really, worked hard and really tried to do their best. And I think the reason is because these guys are, they're here, but nobody knows who they are, where they come from. People call them Mexican. People call them Hispanic, even though they are Native American, which is, to me, the biggest irony. So somehow, I mean, hardly anybody knows that the U.S. invaded Guatemala even. So they were very happy to engage in something that was about their history, that in a way acknowledged who they are and their history. And I think that's part of why they got into it. Plus, I pay them very well, and their economic situation is very, very, very precarious. I mean, they are, deeply exploited, and yes.
So in a way, you kind of hedge their identity. So you give them, let them, like with the police, let them speak whatever they speak, or maybe the police never have the chance to be that aggressive in
yeah, I mean,
they never have the chance to really
exactly.
show, it's by performing their identity in public space,
Yeah, they're they're performing themselves, and I think there's something about the camera that's very liberating in the sense that, one could argue that in front of a camera we can even be more than ourselves than who we are, because than what we normally are, because in a way there's excuse of fiction, and that's kind of liberating because we are already playing roles in society, and and we kind of self-censor ourselves a lot. So the camera, in a way, can liberate that. But on the other hand, I mean, I think that was one thing that was important, but just also, I mean, talking to somebody that knew who they were, and then just, I mean, that kind of created a connection that to me is very important, and that does not happen to them all the time. So I think that is something that also really, really interests them beyond the performance. Okay, so should I show another piece? Okay, so I will now show a piece I made more recently in 2015, and this piece is called The Indian Project. And in the summer of 2014, I was resident faculty at Skowhegan. And Skowhegan, for those of you that don't know, it's an art school in Maine, the state of Maine, in rural Maine. That's only open in the summers. And it's a really great art school. And the name of the school is named after a town that's a few miles away. And this town has a name that supposedly comes from a Native American language, the Abenaki name. And then the whole town has an identity that revolves around Native American theme, you would say. So one of the other resident members of the faculty is an artist, like a Native American artist. His name is Jeffrey Gibson, and he was giving a talk, and then he mentioned that part of the country, New England, is the part where the worst genocide took place. That basically everything was erased, and nothing remained. So then it left me thinking, why would the whole identity of the town next door revolve around Native American and Native Americans? So I started doing some research, and the town has a really big sculpture that's an over 80 feet tall, that they call the tallest Indian in the world. So I started researching, and sure enough, there was absolutely no connection culturally or genetically. And this was a whole identity that got invented in the 1960s when the whole wood industry collapsed because they finished all the forests. And then the Chamber of Commerce of town invented it as a way of bringing tourism in their minds. So I went to the Chamber of Commerce, and when I was there, they were raising money because they were restoring the sculpture. And the kind of fundraiser campaign, they called it the Indian Project, and therefore the title of the piece. And I asked the members of the committee in charge of the restoration and the director of the executive director of the Chamber of Commerce to conduct a TV program at the public access TV about the Native American identity of the town, about the sculpture. And I also asked them to perform a Native American trance ceremony. I didn't specify much more than that. So anyway, I'll play the video and then we can discuss it after.
This is Katie Willett, inviting all of you to a wonderful program. We are going to talk about the Skowhegan Indian. Now, whether you like it or not, we're going to talk about it. That's our football team, As a matter of fact, all of our teams are called the Skowhegan Indians. And look at the studio. I'll bet you know that that's the topic for the day.
Oh. Oh.
This whole history of the Skowhegan Indian, as sculpted by Bernie Langley of Warren, Maine, and I have his picture here. But right now, don't miss the Skowhegan Indian that is being restored by Steve Dion. The Skowhegan Indian. This sculpture is dedicated to the Maine Indians, the first people to use these lands in peaceful ways. You must hear all of that over and over again, simply because we have so much that is not peaceful in our country. I hope that this tradition lives on.
My name is Corey King. I'm the Executive Director of the Skowhegan Area Chamber of Commerce, and we are the owners of the Indian statue. It was originally commissioned for by the Skowhegan Hospitality Association, and that was given to the Chamber. And so we actually own the Great Skowhegan Indian statue. I do want to thank Joshua Okón from the Skowhegan School of Painting and Sculpture, and he's the director for this project, and helping us tell this story. And I think it's an important story. Skowhegan commissioned for the statue in the late '60s, and that was a high time in Skowhegan. Things were prosperous. There were businesses, there were mills, they were running logs down the river, and we were tied back to our river and our community in the wood and the wood industry. And the last log floated down the river in the mid-'70s. As things started to change, less money was available for projects and upkeep, and what happened is the Indian and the maintenance on the Indian fell by the wayside. People start making it a focus of what we have. It was still the logo of the town office, and it was still the mascot for the high school, and there were certain statues and artifacts around town signifying it, but it seemed to slip further and further back into our consciousness as other things arose, until about 10 years ago, when some people said, we need to bring this back. We need to reinstill the power of our community and our sense of place. And so they started a fundraising effort, and that fundraising effort spans the last 10 years, until within the last 18 months, the majority of the fundraising happened, and we have got to our $65,000 goal. We've actually done some fundraising with both the statue, this ornament size, and there is a size in between as well. But they've become wonderful pieces that we've given to dignitaries and people that are visiting the area, senators and whatnot, and saying, here, take a piece of our community with you. There's also a marketing campaign that began. This is one of the t-shirts. I'll move this out so you can kind of see. And we're calling this year our Indian Summer. And rebuilding history, because it's kind of what we're doing.
Also, I'd like to introduce Jeanette Dion, whose son, Steve, is in charge of restoration of the Indian. And Jeanette has some things there.
I really think that everybody needs to have a little memento of our famous Indian. Yes. And it makes a great Christmas present.
Oh! 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 Skowhegan, it's actually an Indian word meaning a place to watch. And that's named after what the town was, a place to watch. The way the river bends and the islands, how they fall in the river, Skowhegan literally was a lookout point. You could see what was coming up and down the river. Apparently there was wonderful fishing here, and that's why this area got settled in the first place.
So I'm not even sure where the name Skowhegan really came from, except Indian language that means a place to watch for fish. But now it's fun time, and Abby Shan, I told you she was going to give you some music, and Corey and Jeanette, thank you, and Corey, you still want to act up, so go for it.
Well, no, I think one of the interesting things for me about the Indian is how everyone has a story. You know, everyone has the first time that they saw it, or they have the first time that they were around it, you know, that they have, it was something that their parents showed them, or when they had friends come along, they would go see the Indian. And there's a little bit of everything that we can all relate to, and it brings us all together. It ties us together as a community.
Okay, I'm gonna stop it there. I think that gives you a good idea. So we watched about 2/3 of the entire length. And it's, any question? Back there.
Hi, I'm just curious. Those are real people, right? They're not.
They're
like,
not
I wonder
animatronics.
how serious they were when they're doing the spiritual performance, or how do you like persuade them to?
How do I what? Sorry.
Persuade them.
Okay, persuade them. Well, this is a fiction that I did not invent. I found it. I mean, it was already happening. So in a way, I asked them to do this performance based on the fiction that they were already performing. And in a way, I just took it a notch further. So in that sense, I mean, it was very natural for them to perform this. But it's also it's important to mention that this piece is not about them as individuals. I mean, the denial of the genocide, it's not particular to Skowhegan, and it's not particular to these individuals. I mean, in a way, they are reflecting a bigger structure. I mean, through them, we can, think about structural issues, and that's what interests me. Thank you.
I ask a lot of questions.
That's good.
One of my high schools basically looked exactly like this. And had I not been to a high school that was painted like this, and it was like a very white school, and all of the cheerleaders were like wearing headdresses. It was terrible. And and the Native American community that did live in the region at one point, or they came to the school and they're like, we would really appreciate it if you changed your mascot and actually respected our culture. But had I not seen that, I would look at this and think that maybe this is a set that you have painted to kind of match this fiction that you have tripped across. And I'm wondering, is this the props and the little figurines and the statue outside and the it's an interesting, it really does bring a question for the viewers of how much of this is the fiction that you came into and how much of it is a further elaboration, where is that hazy line, and maybe you want to leave that question lingering in our minds, but I'm very curious.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm happy to respond, and I there's, of course, my hand is in here, and when you watch the videos, you're supposed to think about the behind the scenes and about me orchestrating this situation, and in that sense, I mean, there is a degree of manipulation here. I'm not presenting reality as it is. Even if I try, I don't think that's a possibility even. Nevertheless, there's a lot here that I found, that I did not invent, that I did not create. Like I said, it's a fiction that's already in place. I did paint the set, but the whole aesthetic of the set is based on I appropriated, oh, sorry. Was that me? I appropriated the aesthetic of the town, or the aesthetic of the town. So for instance, that circular sign is an actual existing circular sign from the Chamber of Commerce. The rest I painted. The figurines are actual figurines that they used as a way to raise money for the restoration project, and the sculpture exists. I didn't Photoshop it. So there's a high degree of this. But by the way, I mean, I personally, and this is very personal, I do not have an issue with appropriations. I mean, I appropriate, and I think culture is about appropriating, and I think it's very tricky to think in terms of authenticity. I mean, culture is hybrid by nature, so in that respect, I mean, I don't think it's problematic to appropriate, Native Americans or an image of a Native American. To me, the problematic side is, it's the systematic denial of the genocide. In other words, if this genocide is acknowledged, I don't think there's anything wrong, and I even think it would be healthy to address the cultures. And I think a lot of the members here do it in a very well-meaning way. But the problem, I mean, for instance, one of the images was of a sign that you can find in town that dates, 16 something, that basically is stating that the local natives sold the whole state of Maine and beyond, like even more than the state of Maine, for bread and wine, and it's basically framing the genocide in such a way that that's the part that I find personally highly problematic. But anyway, yes.
Thank you. I wonder if you say, like, in principle you have no problem with appropriation, isn't exactly the tragedy that you're showing here is that all that is left of this Indian culture in this place is this appropriation by these people, and it's actually, of course it's funny, there's a lot of humor in the play, but it's very tragic too if you see that this is as Indian as it gets there.
It's super tragic. I mean, this piece is about an incredibly tragic aspect. I mean, it's about the genocide. It's
but also very much the appropriation that has no origin anymore. So what is?
Yes, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying. I mean, I'm saying I find this appropriation problematic. But the reason why I find it problematic is because of the way it's framed. not because of it being an appropriation.
Exactly.
That's what I was trying to articulate.
Yeah.
And the way it's framed, it's a way of denying a genocide. I mean, it's framed like that. So, and the other genocide that I wanted to stress here as well is the other genocide here is the forests around the town. This kind of logging industry that also pretty much has systematically erased all the forest from the planet. Yes.
In the video, the guy, he like shouts you out at one point, right? And he says that you are like the head of painting and drawing. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Was that your actual title at Skowhegan?
Did he say the head?
Something like that, or it wasn't you when he said that? I thought he said something misspoke
I think
on
he
your
said
name.
that I was teaching at the school, or I don't remember what exact words he used, but he was referring, because when I introduced myself as what I was, like a teacher like a professor. I think I'm not sure. Now you're making me doubt, but he didn't say head. He just referred to the fact that I was teaching in the school.
Yeah, but he says something like he says like painting and...
It's because the name of the school is Skowhegan School of Painting and Sculpture. That's the official title of the school, and that's what they know it as in the town. Yeah.
I just thought that was a strange thing too, because I mean, seemingly your practice doesn't have... And of course that title is obligatory to like the school, but then you did end up producing like some painting work for this, which is probably not also I don't know. I just thought that was a weird thing for yourself as like your like artistic identity. But I was also wondering, for the school itself, for that program, like, influence kind of like leading you to this video. What do you know of any like, I don't know, attempts at changes in their, I mean, I know that their representation doesn't have to do with like this type of iconography, but like something that's racist, but like,
attempts, you mean like for the school to change its name, for instance?
Yeah, or I don't know, or...
I mean, like I said, this is a systematic problem to the entire nation. It's not this little town. I mean, in this little town, it's maybe more evident than other places. But, I mean, this absolute denial there is, it's pervasive. I mean, it's all around, and that includes the school itself. So I am bringing that school into the picture as well as part of that problem. So no, I have never heard of any attempts of the school to, I mean, I don't think they would even need to change the name, but just to address the issue. And I mean, there are many genocide museums in the U.S. That talk about the Armenian genocide and Holocaust, etc., and none of them addresses the Native American genocide. So, sorry, the biggest one, and the one that happened here too. So I remember I was part of the Artists Council at the Hammer Museum, and they were thinking about doing an event related to the Armenian genocide, and I addressed and I said, there's no way of doing anything about any genocide if the Native American genocide is not addressed first. And they looked at me like I was completely crazy. I'm really glad they're doing now the Jimmy Durham's exhibition. I think it's a very, very important exhibition. And in a way, it's kind of a paradigm changing, or I hope so. We ran out of time so fast. What's the time? I can go if you want. I don't mind. I can leave. What is the time? It's 7:20. 7:20. Well, let's ask the audience. Are you guys want to see more, or are you ready to leave? Okay, because I think a performance, or no, sorry, an artwork will take place here after. So, what? At 8. Okay. Sure. Yes. I mean, if they look like idiots, then we all look like idiots, including you and me. In other words, I don't think this is, I mean, I think that's kind of like a cop-out kind of reading, in the sense that I make the whole process of, I mean, of making this video, it's very naked, you know, it's very, you know, transparent. And of course, you know, there is a degree of exploitation. Just pointing a camera at somebody carries exploitation. And there are makers that are more transparent about than others. You know, when you watch a Hollywood film, you do not think about that, but that doesn't mean it's not there. So I am not going to deny that, I mean, there is no way of inhabiting the system we inhabit without falling into some sort of exploitation, one way or another. And I think the most honest thing to do is just to, you know, begin a critique there. So the way I frame these things is a way in which you are very much aware of my involvement and the fact that I do have a position of power, but at the same time, you're supposed to also be very much aware of thinking about your own position of power and your relationship to what you are watching, and the fact that we are all in the same boat, in the sense that we are all inhabiting this system. In other words, I am not putting myself beyond what you are watching. I mean, I consider myself part of the problem, not to be outside of it. And I try to you know, structure these pieces in a way that you also think of your own involvement into what you are watching. And that's when political correctness becomes very dangerous, because I think political correctness can be used as a way of remaining in a state of denial, or in a state of not wanting to acknowledge the fact that we are participating in this, in a lot of violence, because we inhabit an incredibly violent and exploitative system. So I'm not going to say I'm beyond it. I think it would be hypocritical. So I don't know if I answered to your question. Well, I mean, I got into a lot of trouble making this piece, and it's a piece that it's supposed to be very hard to watch. And the producers, for instance, of the public access TV were very pissed off, and they refused to air it because they were supposed to air it. So then a few of them after the fact, you know, were upset and came to me, and I tried as hard as I could to explain to them that this piece is not about them as individuals. This piece is about a bigger, it's critiquing our culture, not them as individuals at all. I mean, I don't think these people are any better or worse than anybody else. And I think, like I said, it's a systematic problem that I'm pointing to. It's not about them. And I think for anybody to read this as being about them as individuals is automatically, putting him or herself outside of the picture and trying to really not deal with the fact that we're part of this problem. We're not looking from the outside. We are looking. We're inside. If it comes down to, for me, kind of trying to think about, risking offending these people versus keep denying a genocide, I can live with it. I don't think I'm offending those people. Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, we cannot speak from a place of purity. I mean, we can just be aware or not of the fact that we participate in exploitation. Unfortunately, I mean, ideally, yes, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, I can give you a very basic example. I mean, you have no idea who made the clothing you're wearing, and I can bet you it was most likely slaves or highly exploited people. You just choose not to think about it. But I don't think, I mean, in our everyday lives, there's a lot of exploitation involved because these are systemic problems. And my hope is through the work to give visibility to these aspects of the system and of the planet we inhabit. So no, there's no other way. Unfortunately, we're part of this. Yes.
Watching this video, I thought a lot about how humans usually deal with tragedies, whether they caused it or they received it whatsoever. No matter how much time goes by, they sort of make the event into like a folk tale to serve, for whoever who's creating or for self-satisfactory reasons probably.
Yes.
Which is kind of funny because they're making like a distinction between like us and them. But also which means that the tradition is dead because it's not changing. But they also acknowledge that they're the ones who are sort of like doing this thing. So they do understand that the culture is also ever-changing matter. So there's like this irony there. And I was just wondering what you think about this idea of like folklorization or even generalization.
Yeah, I mean, you're referring to the big narrative. I mean, it's a big narrative that has been invented in order to deal with the question of who was here before. And they are, that narrative, I've heard it before, and that's why when I thought about saying, perform a Native American trance ceremony, there is already a very strong imaginary as to what that means. I remember as a kid, watching cartoons from the US, and there were images of Native American ceremonies that are completely off, of course. I mean, they have nothing to do with reality, but nevertheless, they constructed a narrative and then they constructed a whole imaginary of supposedly what these cultures are about. So again, I mean, this is not particular to them. They did not come up with all of this. It's in the imaginary. And I don't think it's hard to make that leap, to kind of recognize this, because we have seen it many, many times. And to make this about them, I think it's a cop-out. Mm-hmm. So you're saying that I'm perpetuating this? Are you saying, I didn't, so you're kind of saying that this can be perpetuating this?
Right, I mean, this actually, when you look at it from this point of view, is very problematic. But
Yes.
it can also be very important function in how, for humans.
Oh, I see.
To deal with.
I think there are healthier ways. I mean, one of the things that Jimmy Durham argues is that if the U.S. does not come into terms with the genocide and with slavery, it will never go anywhere. I mean, and I agree with him. I mean, there are different ways of dealing with things, and I think there can be ways of dealing with genocides in a way that they are acknowledged, and there are ways of dealing with genocides in ways that they can be denied. And I think the big problem here is this kind of state of denial and the problem that we have with kind of facing the issue. So, I mean, what I attempt to do in this video is just to take this very normalized narrative and destabilize it. And that's, of course, a very uncomfortable process. Yes. Well, I mean, I think a lot of this is inbuilt in the work in the sense that, I mean, this kind of discomfort that it creates, or this kind of destabilization of this narrative, it's, you don't have to read anything. I mean, it's kind of, in a way, experienced by watching the work. But, I know art allows for a lot of information to be given, in a kind of peripheral way. I mean, every time I show an exhibition, a piece, I make sure that there is a text next to it in the form of like a wall text or a printout that is giving you the contextual information that can help you kind of go deeper into the meaning of the work. Mm-hmm.
But what you're saying is there's like a very clear idea of what's right and what's wrong. So I was just trying to.
Where is there a very clear idea of what's right and what's wrong? I mean, I'm not thinking in terms of right and wrong. I'm just saying, it's not a matter of right and wrong, but I just think that a denial of the genocide is very problematic. That's what I'm arguing. But that's my take on it. I mean, I'm not imposing that on you in the sense that the work is made in a way that I'm kind of putting the issue on the table, and then it's up to you to decide what to think. And that's why I said, that's my personal take on that, but I don't think the piece necessarily takes you there. What the piece does, it just destabilizes a narrative for you to then, come up. Yes. Yes. What? The genocide? Very sad. What I mean, I am not from the US, and since the first time I came to the US, I've encountered these kind of attitudes, and to me they've always been problematic, but I never take it personally. I mean, these can be very good people, and I understand that it's kind of a narrative that has been, you know, in many ways inherited and established in a very strong way. So again, I mean, I've seen it as a systemic problem all through. I never make it into a personal thing, because I don't think this should be understood as a personal thing. It's, you know, culture is way beyond us, and we are, you know, respond to conventions. I mean, we are a reflection of the systems that we inhabit. So.
Do it.
Yes.
So I've been in the US for 10 years, and almost every American that I've met is aware that when the Europeans moved over here, they exterminated basically the native population. So, I mean, that's the people that I've met. Were these people unaware of that fact, or were they just unaware of the roots of the actual geographic location?
Well, I've never heard anybody speak in those terms, that the, you know, when the colonizer came, say, exterminate. I mean, I've never heard anybody say that, and I'm sure there are individuals that understand that, but that does not mean that there is like a structural state of denial in the way the narrative has been constructed. I don't agree with you in that. I mean, I think when you go to Germany, Germans have done a lot of work with regards to the genocide that took place there, and it's a very different language in which they address it, and it's much more present. You know, here it's not present. You know, it's just really under the rug, so to speak.
Kind of in response to that, having, you know, generations of family here in the United States, I know that my family is, I don't know if it's denial or just lack of education. I mean, because I know, like, the story of Christopher Columbus was what we were taught in school. I mean, and I think about how what is being taught in schools has changed so much over the generations, and now young people, adults, people who have been in school for however long, do learn about the genocide. But I think that, like, I wonder if these people believe in that bread and wine story. You know, I wonder if they're like, yeah, we heard about that whole, like, smallpox thing. You know, we heard about the, you know, but to really actually hear about the numbers of people and to really, like, actually grasp onto, like, information as opposed to, like, the kind of, like, sweeping, foggy but not detailed stories or notions of there were people here and then where did they all go, you know? And I think, so I wonder if there is like, humor is a really great tool for getting people's attention and communicating, but I wonder if you also include information about the people that, the Native American people that lived there, and or in the area or whatever, that were, you know, victims of the genocide. Because I think that you know, I wonder about denial. I mean, yes, definitely people are in denial, like, you know, like you're saying, like the clothes that we wear, or, you know, high incomes, low incomes, and, you know, what it takes for wealthy people to be wealthy is to be stepping on the backs of many, you know, people in poverty. But I wonder if the information and, like, the actual history is a part of what they're aware of, or if they latch on to the fiction because it is because that's actually the more detailed thing that they have been delivered, and that's the thing that they're delivered all the time, you know.
I'm not sure if I got the question.
So the question is, when you present when you present, do you ever, do you also present information? I mean, I know it seems ridiculous to educate the people who you think are already educated, but it's really fascinating to me how many people are not educated. They're like, we know there was a genocide, but we don't actually know exactly what that looked like, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very important for me to mention that, you know, that the genocide took place first of all, because I don't hear many people speaking in those terms. So that in itself, it's already a framework, and also to mention that area specifically is where the genocide was, you know, the worst. I mean, in the sense that there was absolutely nothing left. And I limit myself to giving these two pieces of information in the text that I give, which I think are, you know, more than enough contextual information. And beyond that, you can go and do your homework. But I don't see that as my role. So that's a. Sure. Do we have time? Okay. What can I show in a short period? Okay, I know what I'll show. The toilet. This is a sculpture, but it's also a functioning toilet made in the shape of a public building, private building that has a strong public presence that is called the Sumaya Museum. And the Sumaya Museum belongs to Carlos Slim, who is one of the richest persons in this planet. I think at some point he was the richest, and he alone has more money than the rest of Mexico, than all of Mexico put together, and a lot more than all of Mexico put together. So anyway, I did this piece in collaboration with another artist, Santiago Sierra, and we presented it at an art fair, which you know, we thought it could be like a good way of framing this piece. Anyway, I mean, the idea also was for this piece to inhabit the social media. We thought of it as a good image for Instagram. So we were kind of you know, calculating that this would become viral, and it did. So it's anyway, it's the toilet, but it works. So anyway, any question about this one? Did I leave anything out? Sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes, and I mean, part of the problems with art fairs is that, it also included the photograph of the thinker, because sitting on that toilet, because the museum, this building, it really operates as a symbol of his power and a symbol of corporate power, but also the building houses his art collection, which allegedly houses a lot of fakes. I'm not sure. And he has, of course, Rodin's Tinker. Oh, no, I don't. I should include it here. I will. Think that's a good. What is the original? Where is it? It's in Mexico City. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a building in Mexico City that's very famous locally. So anyway, so it kind of worked. I put an image in my Facebook, and I got like 680,000 views or something ridiculous like that. So in a way, I mean, art fairs are a terrible context for art, I think, generally speaking, because they really decontextualize work. So we really thought hard at you know, and also the attention span in art fairs, I think it's 2 seconds or something like that, like very, very short. so we thought about, making a piece that could, people could read really quickly and then photograph and kind of, we thought of like social media as a medium that would kind of disseminate this work, yeah. So anyway, that's the, yes. Yes, yeah, it's for sale. It's an edition of 10, and we only sold one. And it's now in this collector's house toilet, bathroom, sorry. Like he uses it. Yeah, you can install it. Sorry? This is at the art fair in Mexico City called MACO. And I mean, and it's become a very fashionable thing to go to the art fair, and like people really dress up for it, etc. And nobody looks at art, it's just a social event. So a lot of people from LA goes to this fair, yes. So one could say it's almost like an art fair piece, or made for that, thinking about that context specifically. Oh, no. No word. Yes, but I mean, I know the architect is his son-in-law, and I know that guy, and I know people that know him really well, and they told me that he was really pissed off. Yes. But again, it was not about him. It was really a comment about, a system that allows for a single individual to have more wealth than an entire country. There's got to be something wrong there. I mean, it's. Sorry? It's definitely part of the system, yeah. But again, like Foucault said in a very clear way since the 1970s, there is no outside. I mean, we can only speak from the inside and from within. So you have to go to the belly of the beast in order to critique it. It's a gallery, it was a new gallery. This is the first thing they ever did. So that's why they ventured to do it and to produce it and the whole thing. So it was great because it gave them a lot of visibility. They were very, very happy, but very brave. Yes, and also, millionaires generally kind of protect each other. So if you mess with one, you mess with the whole club. And big, powerful galleries, don't want to piss off billionaires because they depend on them for business, for sure. Anyway. Okay. Thank you very much.